In today's video, I'm going to be bringing you a complete overview of the brand new yellow Katakuri deck coming out in OPO3 Pillars of Strength. What's going on, guys? Beats by Ash back at it again with another banger of a video, and I wanted to bring you guys this content because I realized I haven't done anything on the sim in quite a while for this channel, and that's just because I felt like the sim is pretty dull and not as entertaining to watch as IRL content, but I figured since we haven't done this in a while, we might as well revisit it, and I think it's a great opportunity for me to introduce you guys to a couple new concepts so you can get ahead of the curve and learn the goo before anybody else figures anything out. If you enjoy this video, make sure to smash the like button, turn post notifications on, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another banger. And without further ado, let's get into the goo. Now, the reason I think you should choose this leader over the other yellow leaders available in the brand new card pool is because this ability on paper is essentially a better version of the Smoker leader ability, which was introduced in OPO2 with the also new color black. So essentially on attack, you can attach one Dawn and look at the top card of either player's life area. And if you do so, then you may return it to either the place it was already in, or you can put it on the bottom, after which you then gain plus 1000 power. So essentially, by attaching one Dawn, you're always going to be attacking for 7. Now, I think that this leader ability makes yellow so much more powerful than it would be if we didn't have a leader like Charlotte Katakuri. And that's because I think it's kind of difficult for Bandai to introduce a new color and make it immediately competitively viable because red has so many tools and is such a dominant threat in the current game. But since we have a leader that honestly impacts the strategy so much, I think this deck will easily be a tier 1 strategy, and you should definitely look out for it on the competitive scene. So this leader is super nice because our entire strategy is based around attacking for efficient numbers and as well manipulating our life as well as our opponents. This can come in handy in a multitude of situations. Normally for me, I've been looking at my own life cards in the early game because we have a lot of triggers in this deck. And as you'll notice, if you get off 1 or 2 triggers, you're going to have a huge tempo swing, which is ultimately going to create so much advantage that your opponent is going to have a difficult time keeping up, and it allows us to slow down the game so we can play our big end game cards. One thing yellow has going for it is some of the other colors have been lacking because they didn't receive high cost bombs. A bomb is something that is highly impacting the metagame and can sometimes even warp it, such as your 8 cost Captain Kidd or your 9 drop Edward Newgate. Well, in yellow, we actually got about 3 big drop cards that have a high impact on the game state whenever they're first played, and I think that is amazing for yellow. Now, I would say the disadvantage to yellow is that with the current card pool, it feels like you almost really need to go second or else you might be in some trouble, because obviously there's not going to be as much consistency in this strategy as something like red, which has so many searchers, and similarly to green. We do have one searcher that's very strong, but ultimately the curve that we have available with our current card choices is so much better going second, and that's why I've decided to include multiple cards that can make up for that, because you can't always win the dice roll. So to start off, we're playing a total of 12 2K counters. We have the 4 Sanji, the 4 Streusen, and the 4 Charlotte Pudding. So to keep things brief, I would say that you never really want to play Streusen or Pudding, and Sanji is a card that can be good if you're playing against a strategy that you don't think is going to be able to close out the game quickly, because essentially by attaching 2 Dawn on attack, we can add either the top or bottom card of our life to our hand, then the top card of our deck gets added to our life. So essentially, if this survives for 1 turn, you're going to be able to draw a card on attack, and like cards such as Raizo, we have seen have such a high impact in the game when you're able to gain advantage over the course of multiple turns. But what's nice about Sanji is that if it does survive, we also just have some searching abilities in a way, considering that our leader lets us look at the top card of our life. So you can set up a couple different interactions with this card. Let's say I used our leader to attack our opponent and we reveal the top card of our life, and it's not a trigger, but it is a 2k counter. Maybe we want to put that on the bottom of our life so we can get to a trigger more quickly, and then we play our Sanji, and now if we want the 2k later on, we can still add back from the bottom if we're keeping track of that. And I think that's just amazing because the more layers of skill expression that are added to the game, since it's a best of one card game, are going to be better for increasing your win rate and ultimately controlling as many aspects as possible in order to do the best you can. So I think this card is amazing, but the other ones you're not really going to play, and I would recommend against playing this if you're going against a Zoro or someone who can rush you down, because you're not going to be able to generate value and they can just pop it with a Vista or a 5-cost Marco. Moving on to the cards that we want to prioritize in our opening hand, probably the best card to start off with is Charlotte Pudding, a 1-cost 2k searcher which reads on play, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck and add 1 Big Mom Pirates card or Sanji, which just so happens to be the best 2k in our deck, and then place the other cards on bottom. Now at first glance, it may be easy to think this card is not nearly as good as all of the searchers that Red just keeps on getting, which reveal 5. Well, I would say that this card is actually so much better than almost every searcher in the game, and that is because every single card in our deck is either a Big Mom Pirates card or Sanji, except for 1 card that we play 4 copies of, meaning that it's a statistical improbability for you to ever miss with this card. And on top of that, since we can look at everything, we have so many options to choose from to pick for each scenario, and that is amazing because, like I always say, the reason why searchers are so powerful in this game is because more options opens more opportunities for different lines of thinking to control the outcome of your game. So overall, this card is insane, and I see it easily being a staple in yellow for the near future. Now, one of the next best cards, and probably one of the cards you're going to want to add off your Charlotte Pudding if you don't already have it, is Charlotte Sparrow. So like I said at the beginning, this deck struggles to go first, and that's why we are maxing out on 4 Charlotte Sparrow and as well 3 Peckhams, so we have a total of 8 3-drops. Now, while these cards do fill up our entire curve on the play, I would argue it's almost better to have a 3-drop on turn 2 whenever we're starting with 2 Dawn, because we want to use our leader ability right off the bat so we can look at our life and check to see if we have a trigger available. Because as you will notice in our games, as soon as you trigger your first effect that summons itself at the beginning of the game, you're going to create a huge tempo swing for yourself that's also going to generate a threat your opponent has to deal with, or if they don't, you're going to race them out of the game, and if they do, it's going to slow down the game to where we can get to our win condition being our 10-cost Big Mom, which in my opinion is probably one of the best cards introduced in OPO3. So this card on KO lets us look at the top 3 cards to add a Big Mom Pirates card, which actually, different than Pudding, can add himself. And this effect is amazing because it has a trigger effect which says we can discard a card from our hand to play it. So this is probably the best card to have as your first life card in the beginning of the game, because it's going to generate an immediate attacker. When it comes back to your turn, you're going to threaten them for 1 damage with him, 1 damage with your leader, and then he's going to become tapped, which means you're almost putting so much pressure on your opponent that they have to answer it, and then you're going to get a search which could get you a Charlotte Pudding or could get you to one of your win conditions. So overall, I think it's important to max out on these 3-drops so that you don't get behind in the early game, because we want to use our leader ability a lot in the early game so we can reveal our triggers and know when we want to take a damage, and if not, so we can cycle through them. If you miss one of these cards to play on turn 2, it does feel like some of the faster decks can outpace you, so I would probably advise to at least play 3 Peckhams combos, but you can do whatever you want. On to the 4-drops of the deck. Charlotte Cracker is going to be another MVP, as he also shares the trait with a trigger where you can discard 1 card from your hand to put himself on the board. I would say that he probably fights for that same slot as Charlotte Perospero as probably the best card to trigger first in your life, because if you see this card early when you're on the draw in the damage zone, then you're going to generate a body which has an effect that says Dawn 1x. If you have less life than your opponent, this character gains double attack and plus 1k. Since we're on the draw and we're taking the first damage, this is going to be immediately live, and even if you don't get to double attack, on that following turn, you're going to attach 1 Dawn to him and 1 Dawn to your leader, and now you've created 2 7k attacks for a total of 2 Dawn, which is absolutely amazing. Now, I would say that playing him or your other 4-drop, which is actually just a vanilla in Charlotte Opera, is not as optimal as a 3-drop on turn 2 because you don't get to use your leader ability. But if you don't have a 3-drop, it's just fine to play either of these. But that's why I don't play 4 Opera, because sometimes your opponent will make you go first, and I would rather have more 3-drops than 4s, because in that situation, we might not have a card to play on turn 2, and we can't afford to give up that early tempo unless we get a little bit lucky with our triggers. And I like to play for what's going to be the highest percentage for us to just generally play the game. Now, a 4-cost 6k is also very good versus Whitebeard, so if there happens to be a lot of Whitebeard in the meta, I could understand why you would want to put this card at 4, but for today's video, we're going to play with it at 3. Moving on to our mid-game threats, we're going to be playing a total of 2 7-cost Charlotte Linlin and 3 8-cost Charlotte Katakuri. Now, the reason I only play 2 7-cost Big Mom is because I feel like this card is sometimes hit or miss. Obviously, it's better on the play than on the draw, but essentially, your opponent gets to choose whether they lose a life or you gain a life. Pro tip, if you're going against Big Mom, you pretty much never want to choose to give them a life. And that's where the drawback comes with this card. Essentially, if your opponent is already at 0 life, it has no effect, because they can just choose to take a life in which they have none, and it basically just fizzles. And that's why I only play 2 copies of this card, because in some matchups, like the Zoro matchup, this really isn't that impactful, because you probably want to use that 8 Dawn turn or 7 Dawn turn to answer your opponent's board, or just develop like a couple small threats. But I think it is very good if you go against like a lot of control. And also, another point, if Whitebeard is super popular, this card basically has no effect, because they already want to lose that life. But it is still a good card, and it's searchable via our Perospero as well as our Charlotte Pudding, so it is definitely a minimum 2, but I could easily see you putting this card at 3. Now, onto Charlotte Katakuri, probably one of the other MVPs of this deck. This card is insane. On play, we can return 1 character on the board to the owner's life, which means that it can be yours or your opponent's, and it can be put on the top of the life or the bottom, which adds a lot of interactions between if you want to give your opponent that card back, or if you want to put it on the bottom to stop them getting it. And I think this card really comes in handy versus those red decks where they could have a 5-cost Marco, which is essentially immortal, and we're kind of mitigating that option from our opponent because we have no other way to interact with it. And an 8k body for a total of 8 Dawn and removing something is honestly amazing. It allows you to remove most of the big game threats in this game, and I think this is partially responsible to why in the Japanese meta we saw a decrease in the amount of people playing green, because as you know, green's best cards are the 8-drop Kid and the 8-drop Kazuki Odin, in which this card answers both of those very nicely. So overall, I think this is a really good card to have, and I would probably prioritize this card versus the Charlotte Linlin when you're thinking about which one you want to have more of in your deck, just because this card is better in a wider range of options, and I would rather have that than the Charlotte Linlin, which is kind of just like specialized for a few matchups rather than many. So moving on to the entire reason we're playing this deck. This card is crazy. 10 cost Charlotte Linlin. This card basically just power creeps 10 cost Kaido. Like, why would you ever play Kaido? Let me know down in the comments below if you're ready for the Kaido bonfire. We can all throw our 10 cost Kaidos in the fire at once, because that card is a piece of the past. On play, we gain a life and our opponent loses a life. Repeat that. We gain a life, they lose a life. That is literally so insane. And on top of that, it has a 12k body. Now, this card just blows every other big drop out of the water. Think about it like this. With all of those big drops we have, like 9-drop Whitebeard, 8-drop Kid, etc. The drawback to those is you have to be particular on the turn that you play those, because your opponent could try to go for game on you, since you're most likely going to be tapped out of most, if not all, of your Dawn. Now, the same can be said for Charlotte Linlin, but we have an added layer of defense because we're gaining another life. And that is just crazy, because essentially we're generating a body that is really just not worth killing, because you're going to have to invest so many Dawn into it, and we're creating a safety net for the following turn. It's almost like we're getting plus 2k to our leader like Whitebeard, because he's, mitigating 1 if not more damage, and when it goes back to our turn, we can answer anything on the board or get a guaranteed attack. And since we did a damage last turn, we're getting closer to finishing the race. Now, this card really shines in your control matchups, maybe versus like a control ace versus a Rob Lucci, and it's going to be less effective against a Zoro where you're going to be at, a low life total and can't afford to tap out, or they're just going to have a lot of low bodies on the board and they could just beat you down and mitigate that 1 life gained. But against pretty much anybody else, this card is insane, and it almost just feels like this is the new toxic card. In set 2, everybody knows 9-drop Newgate is probably just one of the most toxic cards in the game. If you have back-to-back Newgate, the other guy just can't do anything. He's sitting there and he's waiting for the next round to start. And the same can be said for this card, because chaining these back-to-back is just ridiculous. And I can't say enough about this card, and I'm happy to see that with the introduction of yellow, we're getting such a high level of power established to this new archetype, whereas in black, in set 2, it's not like the cards were insanely powerful or did enough to have an impact to be immediately tier 1, but I think this card just blows that out of the water, and it's nice to see that yellow and black are both competitively viable in this new metagame. And lastly, we're going to speak on these events, and we've got our Shirahoshi. So with the events, we have Thunderbolt. This card is insane. It's literally just a discount jet pistol for 2 Dawn, active main. We can trash a card from our life and KO one of our opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. 2 Dawn, KO something 5 or less. Now that's insane, right? But it also has a trigger effect that does the exact same thing without us losing a life or paying any Dawn. This card is crazy. It's like the new pistol in life, except you can't play around it because you can't just add Dawn to your characters and make sure they survive. This card is insane. If you can stack it on the life, it'll make it to where your opponent thinks they can go for lethal, but you're guaranteed to mitigate a damage. I would say don't use this card against Zoro, because you taking a life is almost never worth it, because that's what they want in their game plan. And like, some of the best cards you could target are a Marco, which they just bring back for free, and then you lost a life for no reason. So in those matchups, try to discard this card for one of your trigger effects, but in the end game, it might come up so you could remove a blocker. Regardless, this card is insane in all other matchups, and the trigger is always live. Honestly, in every other matchup, this contributes to exactly what we want to do with our deck, which is stall out until we get to the late game so we can establish our big bombs, ideally our 10 cost big mom, or if we need to, our 8 cost Katakuri or our 7 cost big mom. Now, what I mean by contributing to the game plan is, even though we take a life, we know that they're not playing a fast deck, so they can't close it out, and when we get to the end game, we're going to be gaining so much value because we removed a threat we couldn't normally interact with by investing only 2 Dawn, and now our 10 cost Big Mom is getting us those life cards back. And there's a couple other ways we can gain life, but overall this card is literally ridiculous, and it's one of the big reasons why this deck is competitive. Now we have one of the best new events added in this set, 2 cost Ikoku Sovereignty, 2 Dawn, gain 5k to 1 leader or 1 character. Okay, this is just the new standard for 2 cost events, and on top of that, it is a cheesy trigger. Ikoku Sovereignty is the last card you want in the life. Trigger, discard 2 cards, add 1 life from the top of your deck to your hand. Now this comes in very clutch because if this is on the bottom and your opponent thinks they have game, you just discard 2 cards which had no counter in your hand, which you'll see comes up a decent amount of the time, and it stops your opponent from ending the game when they really should be able to. Overall, this card is insane, and I couldn't see you playing any less than 3 because the amount of defense that this adds to our game plan for the cost is crazy, and anything with a decent trigger is ultimately working so well with our leader ability. To round out the deck, we have 4 copies of Shirahoshi. Now, this card, you really never want to play it, but because it has a 1k counter, it's never dead. So if you need to, you can discard it for a trigger effect or discard it for its 1k counter. But if you get this card in the trigger, it allows us to dig deeper for our 10 cost Big Mom, for our 8 cost Charlotte Katakuri. It allows us to get to our end game, and that is really nice. This is definitely one of the better cards to have stacked in your life in the early game, and the effect comes up a decent amount of time. I think that this card is probably the only non-Big Mom Pirates card that's worth it to play in the deck currently, and I think it's just amazing. If you're coming from Yu-Gi-Oh!, this is a graceful charity, and the 0 body actually comes up when you're going against a mono red player and they have a Makino. You're like, all right, I'll see ya. And for that 1 green guy at your locals, goodbye Momonosuke. Overall, I think that this deck is very strong going into OPO 3, and the faster that you learn how to effectively make decisions with it, the more that you're going to be rewarded. Because as people understand the more ins and outs of it, I think that it'll have slightly less of an advantage just because there's not that many cards to work with, so your opponent kind of understands what cards the person has in their deck. And unless you've been living under a rock, you know that anticipation is one of the biggest skill gaps in this game. So knowing what your opponent could have, or at least predicting it, is going to give you a huge advantage. And I'm sure as the format develops, more and more people will understand how the deck really works. Now, that's going to be it for the deck overview. One thing I will say is, if things happen just like they happened in OPO 2, where we see an insane amount of Whitebeard, I would probably advise against this deck because it feels so bad versus Whitebeard because they're basically defeating your game plan. You have to come out with a new plan entirely, and I may make a video on how you can best combat that in the future. If you want to see that, make sure to let me know down in the comments. Now, without further ado, let's get into the games. Alright guys, we are back, and we're starting off with the Katakuri mirror match. This is going to be a great opportunity for you guys to learn, so make sure you pay attention because I will be learning alongside of you, and no one is better than anyone, but as long as we put in the work, we're all going to be okay. So here, our opponent chose to go first, which is very interesting. I feel like the deck is very much aligned with going second, so I feel like we kind of have the edge here. If you can see, our hand is looking pretty ideal. We have the turn 1 Charlotte Pudding, as well as the turn 2 Charlotte Perospero, and a 10 cost Big Mom. I'm going to go ahead and play down my Pudding. Let's see what we want to get here. So we already have a turn 2 play available, and turn 3, we can put down this, and we could use a Thunderbolt. I think Thunderbolt is probably the pickup here. We could do Charlotte Linlin. I don't know if we necessarily need this. I feel like since he's on the play, it's probably better to take the Thunderbolt because he's going to be applying pressure. And then let's go ahead and put our Charlotte Linlin on the top so we can hopefully get back to that if we do happen to cycle through our entire deck. I think in this matchup, it's very swingy for the person going second because whoever gets to play their 10 cost Big Mom first is at a huge advantage because there's no way he's going to be able to rush me down before we get to that turn. And at the point where I have mine on play first, I'm just going to be swinging for 12 and hopefully play another one. We'll just have to see how it goes. So what did he add off his Charlotte Pudding? So it looks like he added Charlotte Katakuri. I'm not too sure if that's the 4 cost or the 8 cost, but I will assume it's the 8 one. Let's go ahead and take this. And it's no trigger, but that is completely fine for us. One thing is you got to watch out on the sim because it's difficult to see like what your opponent did with this card or their searchers because it doesn't pop up for you over here for whatever reason. So it looks like he looked at the top card of his own life and he left it at the top. That's kind of scary for us to swing. I think here I really just want to swing because I want to not be behind. So if he hits a trigger, it is what it is. We could still use our Thunderbolt, but let's go ahead and look at his life. Okay, so he does have a trigger. Let's go ahead and place that on bottom. See, that's the important aspect of this matchup is if he leaves something on top, it could be a bluff. And we might have just wasted targeting his own life for no reason. And that's where the mind games come into play, which I think is honestly a really fun new concept to the deck. But it doesn't look like he gets a trigger, which is really good for us. We're going to tap out for our Parasparrow and go ahead and end the turn. At this point, what I'm thinking is he's going to develop a threat on our turn. We could use our Thunderbolt, answer his threat, and then we could tap out for a Charlotte Cracker. If we just so happen to top deck a 3-drop, then we could put it down and use our leader ability. And that could be pretty good, but I think we're good either way. I feel like this card is kind of weak. It kind of demonstrates that he has a weaker hand because he didn't have a Parasparrow or the 3 cost 5k. And now he's going to go ahead and swing 7 at our leader. I don't have a good way to defend this, so I'm going to go ahead and take it. And we do get the trigger. I'm going to go ahead and use that ability here. We might as well. Pretty much anytime you get this opportunity to use this effect, you probably should do so. Not every time, but it's good to know. So we actually have 4 2Ks in our hand, which is looking very good. I'm going to go ahead and discard our Shirahoshi. That's not a card you want to have in hand, and probably discard our Charlotte Cracker. I don't think we really need 2 of those because we're going to get to search with our Parasparrow. So I think we're going to be good on threats because we're going to have this for next turn, and then 2 turns from that, we're going to be able to play our Big Mom. So if we can get a search off of this, or find something in the life that's value to play, it's probably going to be worth. So I actually haven't really seen anyone playing this card. This is a very interesting one. So you essentially get a 4 cost 6k rush character, but he has to have less life than me, which he does not. So it's essentially just a vanilla, and I don't really like this one because it doesn't have any counter, but to each their own. I could definitely see how this could be good, but you have to play it on the correct turn. He just so happened to get decent value out of it, but at the same time, we have our Thunderbolt, so we can just remove his Katakuri for free value. So we could play our Thunderbolt for 2, and then we could demand our own threat on the board. We'll be at 2. Next turn we'll be at 8. I think we have enough 2Ks to where we can do that. Let's go ahead and start off attacking with our Parasparrow though first, just in case he hits a trigger and it changes the game. I like to always tell people in my coachings, if you can afford to do so, use your resources on board first, even though it's probably not going to change your play, just so you don't give away any unnecessary information to your opponent before you need to do so. Let's go ahead and swing 5 because we know we're going to tap out this turn. He's going to go ahead and discard a Charlotte Smoothie, another card that I really don't see as that enticing, but I could see how this could be good. I just don't really think that it's that viable if Whitebeard's going to be popular, but it can be a 4 cost 7k attacker, which is a nice addition to the deck. So what we're going to do here is pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and use our Thunderbolt, trashing the top card of our life. Goodbye, Charlotte Katakuri. Even though we lost a life, he was going to deal damage with that anyway because it's such a high power interval, and that is completely fine for us because we're accelerating the game state. We now have 2 threats established, and we're only 1 card behind in life. And since he plays this card, it's just good to be at a lower life total than him so that he can't get full value out of cards such as this. Make sure you pay attention to what your opponent is playing so you can make the most optimal reads. So for next turn, I'm thinking We could probably play this down, and then we have 4 to play with, so we could make this 7 for 2 if it survives, attach 1 here, attach 1 to our leader, and then that way we're getting a leader reveal before we drop down our 10 cost Big Mom, because one of the most important things is to look forward in the future with this deck, because it's going to change what you're capable of doing. So I think here, 5 on 5, I'm 100% discarding a 2K here. It's going to demonstrate to him we have a weaker hand, i.e. we don't have any 1Ks, but he doesn't know that we actually just have 4 2Ks, which is crazy. So here we either trash the top card of our life or give him one. This is actually tough. Like, I know you always want to take a life, but we're just so low, so it's pretty scary, but I guess so. Okay, and he gets another Shirahoshi from us. That is really good for him. Do we have enough counters to counter out of one of these attacks? If he just goes 10 here, that's 15. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. This is going to be really scary. I don't know that we can really go for game. And if we play this, it doesn't really do much. Honestly, I think the correct play was actually to give him a life, and I miscalculated, so we may end up losing this one, but we will just have to see. I think our best bet is to bait that we have our 2 cost Aikiku Sovereignty. That way maybe he won't push for game. Let's go ahead and attach to our leader. So this is always swinging 7. I want to hold 2 available for sure, but probably 4. And then we could attach here, go for 7. Let's go ahead and swing 5 first, see if he gets a trigger. When your hand isn't very good, you have to make risky plays. Similarly to in poker, we want to give a good read to our opponent so that hopefully they'll play differently and allow us to get another turn. If we get another turn, I think we've got this one in the bag. Just going to look at the top card of our life just to know, okay, it's a 1K. I don't know if we're going to be able to survive, because I think if he just puts 10 on his guy, like, we just auto lose here. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8. Wow, and he plays a Charlotte Cracker. I think that's just going to be game, but I'll play it out. Just go ahead and attach 1 here, swing 7. And he gets another trigger. That really, really hurts. I think he's got this one wrapped up, but I'm going to go ahead and forego playing our Charlotte Cracker just because it's going to make him think that we have more events in hand than we actually do, and that is our only chance of winning. I'm learning a lot from this, so I hope you guys are too. If you think there's anything I could have done better, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. Depending on how the rule set is for these online events with yellow, I would be down to definitely play this in an online event. I think it's a super fun deck, and I think it has a lot of potential to be viable. My only problem is there are a lot of situations where it comes down to who has higher variance, and as you see, I believe he's triggered 1, 2, yes, he triggered 2 cards that were able to give him a body, and then he had Charlotte Linlin on curve, and that's just one of the unforeseen circumstances that we really cannot combat. Here, we might have a chance though. Let's go ahead and discard our 1K and make him think we have a better hand than we do. And he's going to go for value. He's going to go load up his Sanji here. He's going to draw and replace. I mean, we got to block that one too. I think this might just be game no matter what he does, but we'll just have to see. He's only swinging for 7. Okay. We might have a chance here. See, I'm not going to cut this out because, as you can see, our opponent essentially had guaranteed lethal, but because of the way we played, it made it to where he thought that we could protect ourselves when we actually couldn't, giving us a chance to actually come back and win next turn. So even though I'm probably not going to win this one, I think it's good information for you guys to have. Hopefully he'll be down to do a rematch after this though, because I think this is good content and it's a good learning experience for me and as well as everybody else watching. He's going to kill our Perospero. Let's think about this. So how are we going to be able to push for game? He's at 1 life. We have 3 attackers. I think we have to guard this. I think we have to go for game next turn because our life total is going to be too low. Maybe if he attacks one of our characters with his Big Mom, we could actually stabilize with 10 cost, but I'm not too sure. It's a little bit risky. Especially because he has the Charlotte Brûlée. I just don't know. He's going to go ahead and take the value trade here. Okay, that's probably better for us than him not doing so. Maybe I should have let this die, but it's kind of out of my control at this point. He's hovering 3, so he has an event. Wow, okay, and he does have a Charlotte Pudding of his own, so that's very bad for us. I think he just got this one in the bag. And he's going to add a 2K, yeah. I don't think there's much here we can do. Probably just threaten his Cracker. Threaten his Cracker 2 times, drop 10 cost Big Mom. First off, so Sanji is 3. We can't even trade away that. That's unfortunate. Let's go ahead and challenge the Charlotte Cracker. That's probably the best thing to do here. He's going to discard the Streusen. Very good move on his part, getting away the resource that we already know about. And then we're just going to go ahead and swing 5. Drop down our 10 cost Big Mom. We'll gain a life. Maybe we just have 2 dirty triggers here and we're just crazy. Trying to think about what we could get here. I guess we could just double Thunderbolt. Let's say he attacks with this first. Thunderbolt kill. He has 1 natural attacker left, but still, I think he's got it. Gonna go ahead and swing for 5. That's pretty good for us. If we actually come back and win this, we are insane. Trigger effect? No. That means we have 2 Charlotte Pudding in the life. That's unfortunate, but what can you do? He's gonna swing for 5. I'm gonna discard my Charlotte Pudding. At this point, he just has to don up his other Charlotte and swing for game, and it's completely over for us. Yes, sir. He's gonna get it. Let's go ahead and give him a GG. See if he wants to run it back. Oh, and he's down for the rematch. Let's go. All right, let's go ahead and go second once again. Man, our hand is insane. We opened 2 Charlotte Pudding. Let's go ahead and show him who the real best of all time is. He has a Charlotte Pudding of his own. A little bit unfortunate for us, but what he doesn't know is we've got the double pudding action. We came in for seconds, boys, and we are here to stay. Let's go ahead and use our first searcher. I think since we're on the draw, let's go ahead and take our Big Mom here while we can, because we're not guaranteed to see another one of those. And I'll put my Sovereignty on top, just in case I get back to that. Ooh. And we reveal a Charlotte Katakuri. Knowing the playstyle of this guy and how fast he plays, I think it's probably best to take the Katakuri, just so we can answer his 7 cost Big Mom. Let's go ahead and put our 10 cost on top, as we want to get back to that as soon as possible. So he revealed a Charlotte Perospero, so he's going to tap out for that. Here, I'm going to go ahead and discard my Shirahoshi, because this guy plays aggressively. One thing you should know about opponents that you played before, understand their play style and how to work with it to get the best outcome. So here, we've allowed him to develop a threat, and that's completely fine. I'm going to go ahead and attack with my own leader, and we're going to tap out for our Charlotte Cracker. I don't think it's worth it to use the Thunderbolt on his Perospero, because he's going to get a +1 in card advantage, and that's not what I'm looking to do. Okay, and he goes ahead and responds with his own 1K counter. I was hoping he would take the damage because if we can get a life lead while we're on the draw, I think it's pretty much secured, but our hand doesn't have much counter, so it's going to be pretty difficult. I think what I did incorrectly in the first game is maybe I should have countered more aggressively, and that probably would have made us be at a healthier life total, so we would have had more priority in playing our 10 cost Big Mom. But ultimately, I think it did come down to me not losing the life there. If I would have gave him the life, I think it would have just been so much better for us. He's going to attack for 7. It's not worth it. We actually just can't do anything. I'm just lying. Okay, and we get a Charlotte Pudding. Okay, that's amazing. If he taps out for a Cracker, I probably just go ahead and Thunderbolt that. I think we can invest in this next turn. I don't want to take too much damage, so I think I'm going to 2k here. I'm fine with using the 2k because our Charlotte Pudding can get one for us as well. And he's not going to be able to use his Katakuri once again because he indeed does not have less life than us. Okay, so he looked at the top card of our life and he left it at the top. It's probably not a good sign for us, but we do have the Thunderbolt, and I'm glad we countered aggressively because we would not be able to afford to lose that life if we had not done so. Let's think about this. So we're allocating 2 for Thunderbolt. We have 4 to play with. Now we can use 1 on here because I want to swing 7, and then I want to swing 7 here. That's 4. We have 2 to play with. Yeah, I think I do just want to play my Charlotte Pudding. I think I just don't address this. Let's go ahead and start off attaching a Dawn to our Katakuri. And then let's swing 7 here because I don't want him to be 2 ahead on board. Now, this is going to be the big differentiator in this match. Do we look at his life or ours? I'm thinking we look at ours just because he already looked at it and it's a 2k. Yeah, I mean, it's a 2k. I kind of just want to keep that on top. Like, I don't really care that much about the trigger at this point. Our hand is lacking in counter and we kind of need that, so I'm going to keep that there. He's only got 4 cards in hand, so this could be very good for us. Please tell me I don't give him a Big Mom. Okay, so he got a Charlotte Katakuri 123. So that is not this. So he has the 8 cost Katakuri. He's going to be on 7 Dawn. Can't play that next turn. So our Thunderbolt is going to get rid of our 2k in the life, and that's completely fine. Honestly, maybe I should have put it at the bottom in the last life, thinking about this, but at least it's not getting rid of a trigger. And he already knew what it was, so maybe that was better to do what we did. But hindsight can't be 20/20. If we attach 3, we're going 9, and we can go double attack, and that way he probably takes it and it makes up for some of the damage that we took early, especially with our Thunderbolt. I think I like that. Let's go ahead and swing 9. If he wants to discard 3 cards, I'm more than welcome. Okay, he's at 3. Let's go. Keeping the life totals even is going to be better for us as we're ahead on board, and our opponent is not going to be able to play their 10 cost on curve. 10 cost on curve is just so crazy. It's kind of like in the red mirror. If you went first and had your 9 drop on curve, that was insane. The same can be said here, and I think the way we've been countering is going to benefit us much more. But we just got to see if ditching this 2k is going to come back to bite me. Maybe I'll just trigger a Sovereignty in the last life and just cheese this man. He's got 7 Dawn. If he uses a 10 cost Big Mom, am I okay with that? He's going to attack 5 on 5. That means he's tapping out for Big Mom. I'm discarding this. I don't care about that. We're playing Charlotte Katakuri next turn. I think we can take the life. We take the life. We go to 2. He attacks us. We go to 1. He establishes a field. Yeah. It's a tough situation. We'll trash it. Oh my gosh. Who's Nikoku Sovereignty? That really comes back to bite us, but it's not going to be too big of a deal. I think if we pressure his health total this turn, we're not going to be in too much trouble. Honestly, do we care about giving this back to him? If I just play this, put that on top. I think we put this on bottom, low key. Let's go ahead and swing first with this, see if he hits a trigger. That could change what we want to do here. I know it's a little bit risky putting this on the board, but I'm hoping that he's going to respond to our board and not our life. It's just kind of a gamble we got to take. He goes ahead and discards a 1k. I've literally never seen this card. Add 1 card from your life, place 1 card from the top of your deck life area. This card seems understated, and I'm not really a big fan. He's going to go ahead and take the damage, and he triggers a Charlotte Smoothie. That is not good for us. I can't afford to Thunderbolt here. I'm going to Charlotte Katakuri, put him on the bottom of his life. Let's go ahead and pass. Toward the end game, he played kind of modestly, so I'm hoping that that's going to work out for us. If we don't die, if we can stay at 1 life, discard both of these, then we could trade away his board and Charlotte Katakuri could go face. He would be at 1 life probably next turn. And he has his own Charlotte Katakuri. Hopefully he targets our Katakuri. If he gives us back something, that's probably better because we were probably not going to survive. It's completely fine for us. This is probably the best outcome we could have had. If he attacks this, which he probably will, we're not going to be able to defend it, unfortunately. But we do get to do 10 cost Big Mom things. Goodbye, Cracker. Unfortunately, not be cracking back. Ooh, this is a decision. Do we Charlotte Katakuri on his, or do we respond with a 10 cost Big Mom? What am I saying? 10 cost Big Mom's too broke. We got a 10 cost Big Mom. By putting our 10 cost on the board, we're putting him on half 10 cost. Let's go. And we get rid of a 2K. Probably one of the better things we could have gotten rid of. Let's go ahead and look at his trash. I always like to tell people, look at the trash and see what counters they have, what things they have, because anticipation is so important. And he does have a 10 cost of his own. That is very unfortunate. I'm going to have to defend this. Let's go ahead and discard our Peckhams. He can swing with his Katakuri if he chooses to do so. We could trade with his Katakuri. Maybe our Pudding can access us a 10 cost of our own. This is a tough decision. I know it's a little bit greedy, but I want to take this. That's a Charlotte Cracker. Yeah. I feel like I have to do this. It's fine by me. Sure, dude. Ooh. That's pretty good. No 10 cost Big Mom. Sad. Maybe we'll top deck it, though. We have to discard 2. So we can't answer this. He's swinging with this. He's swinging with that. I think we have to go for game. I don't think we're going to need this. We have to push for life next turn. Unless we could Pudding into a Sovereignty and protect 1 life. I'm going to get rid of it. I think I have to. We won't be able to Sovereignty. And then we'll get rid of Charlotte Opera. That's fine. Ooh, we top deck the Eco Sovereignty. That's pretty good. If we Charlotte Pudding and we get another one of these, that'd be really good. We might be able to protect our health total. He's got 4 in hand. This trades away his Katakuri. We get a look at his life. First things first, let's Charlotte Pudding. That is not what you want to see. Not what you want to see indeed. We'll get a 2K. This is going to come down to the wire, but I think he's in so much of a better position than us. See, if we double attack and we hit, then he's at 1. And then we can go boom, boom. Let's see, what can we do with that? We can invest 3. This becomes 9. Then we have 6 to play with. Invest 3. This becomes 9. And then we have 3 to play with. We can go 11. We can go 13. Yeah. I think we just put him on. If he has 5k counter, he has 5k counter. We have to go for game here. If he triggers a Charlotte Brulee, I'm going to be so salty. No. Oh my gosh. That sucks so bad. We could have swung for 11, but then he just mitigates one of the attacks anyway. So we would have done more damage, but there's not a lot we could have done there. We have to keep up 2. So we have to only play with 4 here. Can we invest into this? I think we leave up as much as possible to bait him. This is 7. This is a guaranteed kill. Opponent's life. He's giving you Charlotte Paraspero. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Let's put this on the bottom just in case we can remove a life somehow. Sweet. And then Big Mom trades here. Big Mom trade. Okay. And that's all we can do. See what he does here. Maybe he'll think we have 2 Ikoku Sovereignty. We have a total of 10 counter in our hand, which is decent, but he knows we have no counter in the life, so I think he might just have this one here, but it's going to be close once again. Man, these games are amazing. You never really get these back and forth games. A lot of times people will just quit out, so I'm super blessed that I get to share these moments with you guys. I know I'm not playing the most optimally, but I hope I'm able to give you guys a good perspective of how well you can do with the deck. So make sure to let me know if you think there was something I missed here. So if we go ahead and block this, we go to 15, that's 5, 7, 9, 10. I mean, technically we could just block this. Maybe we just bait him into going for game. He's attacking for 14 again. Yeah, we take this. So we need to get plus 7 here. So we can use an Ikoku Sovereignty. And then we'll use a 2k. And a 1k. Very fortunate for us. And he's going to pass. So he has no Ikoku Sovereignty of his own. It's very unfortunate. Okay, this is actually a big brain play here. We could go with our own Charlotte Katakuri. And we could go ahead and use the effect to bounce back one of our Charlotte Pudding to life, giving us 1. If we clear the board, then we're going to be safe. But I think we might be able to push for lethal because we're going to go in for double attack with our Charlotte Cracker. He's only got 2 up. Let's think about how can we order this. If we do 2, he's at 1. Then we need to hit with both. If we invest 5 into this, this is 11. Then we have 5 available. We go 11, then we go 12. I don't think we can play for board. We hit here, then he just Ikoku sovereignties, and then, you know, we're at 1. Actually, what if we just go 3, 3, 3? That's 5. 5, 5, 5. This would be 3, 6, 9. Actually, I think this is just guaranteed game. I think we just invest 3 to everyone. I think this is the line, boys. Let's go here. Let's go attack 7. This forces him to use Ikoku sovereignty. And then we attack 5 times. Okay, sweet. That's what we wanted to see. Man, if I was doing the line that I thought I was going to do first, I think it was a lot of guesswork on whether we could win. But I think this is just confirmed now. This is insane. I see the line, boys. We can go 5 here. Now we know that this is no counter, so we can go 5 again. If his card is no counter, we win. If it's counter, he wins. It's a trigger. Bro, if this guy hits smoothie, I'd be so mad. Oh, wait. If it's Charlotte Perospero, then we win. That's it, we win. We're insane, boys. Let's go. GG. That was literally crazy. Oh my gosh. If I would have done that differently, I don't think it was confirmed. And he's going to do a best 2 out of 3 series with us. Let's go. Shout out you, bro. This is some high-level gameplay. You're not going to want to miss it. If you got this far in the video, make sure to smash the like button because we're out here doing it like nobody else. Get ready for Beats by Ash, aka the best of all time, to go undefeated the Treasure Cup with Yellow Katakuri because this deck is the goo. So once again, he's going to choose to go first. I don't know why he keeps choosing to go first. I feel like this hand is good, but we have too many cards with no counter. It's a little bit greedy, but I'm going to play it. Okay, and he passes with no Charlotte Pudding turn 1. First time doing so. Pretty good for us. Let's look for some counter. Ooh. Actually, we get the turn 2 Perospero. Let's go. We're in this. Let's go Thunderbolt, Peckham's, Eco Sovereignty. What I like about this is I'm getting the chance to try out different strategies with the deck, you know? I'm not saying everything I'm doing is the end-all be-all, but we're learning together. Okay, so he's going to go ahead and swing 7. He looks to our life, keeps it on top. Nothing we can do about that there. He gives us a 7 cost Big Mom. I think the reason this guy's going first is because he probably maxed out on 7 cost Big Mom. And he's going to drop the Charlotte Pudding. That shows his hand is very weak. Looked at his opponent's life. He moved it to the bottom. Okay. That is completely fine for us. We're going to go ahead and respond to him with a 7 of our own. And then we can look at our life because he already did so. We might as well. Or do we look at his? I feel like since this is unknown, we probably look at his because he has a weak hand. Ooh, and he would have gotten a Charlotte Brûlée. Yeah. It's tough. Do we keep this on top or bottom? Because then we know he's getting a blocker ultimately. Honestly, I'd rather have him get the blocker early. Let's leave it on top. Last card blocker is super irritating. He's going to play that down for free. I don't really like that card. It's kind of a high roll card. But I guess it makes sense because he's playing a going first version, I would assume. I don't know that he's just choosing to go first because of this matchup. I think his deck is oriented to go first. But I feel like he just lost so much value by playing this pudding. I don't think that's worth it at all. He's swinging for 7 again, looking at our life. He left it at the top. Okay, so I guess it's not something good again. Okay, just Charlotte Pudding. I don't know why you give me that. That's insane. I'll take that. He's going to play down this guy. I don't really see what the point of this guy is. I wish we could have the Thunderbolt this one time, though. What is the right play here? We Charlotte Pudding. We definitely want to pressure. This is 1. This is 4. That's 5. It's probably worth. Let's go ahead and Pudding first. Okay. I'm taking the 2K. Our hand is kind of light on 2Ks. I love that you can just add Sanji. It's just a nice touch to the deck. We play this for 3. We have 2 available. Do we slam down our Sanji? I don't think we do. Honestly, it's tough to say. I feel like I'd rather give this to him now. Or would I rather give him a Big Mom? Let's keep this on top. It's keeping me away from 10 cost Big Mom. At this point in the game, it's kind of difficult to interpret what is the best. And then here, swing 6, demand a 2K from him. Ask him if he'll give it to us back. Kind of funny. I wish there was a reason to bait one Dawn, but from what I know, there's no viable 1 cost events, so there's no real reason to. We'll go ahead and tap out for another Pero Sparrow. If he wants to threaten this, for sure. We'll grab a 2K, bro. We want to protect our life total, make sure we don't get behind. This is actually a really good situation for us because we're not too behind on board. If we protect this, is it really worth it? I mean, if we protect this, I hope he attacks it again. Because if he does attack this again, we're mitigating damage for 1 counter. And I would rather mitigate a damage and cause him to re-attack when he could just swing 7 at our leader and it's not worth it for us to protect. Okay, he's going to swing 5, so he's 10 cost Big Momming. Here, I mean, we're going to be 8. I'm just guarding a 1K. I'm just guarding a 1K all day. This is amazing for us. Now we're threatening 5-5-5. He's going to 10 cost. He's going to 7 cost Big Mom. And we're going to go ahead and trash that. Go to 2. I think that's fine. Sweet, sweet. Oh, we have 2 back-to-back Big Moms. I think with how big our board is, we're in a really good position. Swing 5. Swing 5. And it's gone. Okay, that's amazing. That shows us he probably doesn't have a counter in his hand. We'll Charlotte Katakuri. This is looking pretty good for us. I don't think he can pressure our health total, and then we're just going to Big Mom. We have back-to-back Big Mom. I think it's just closed out here. We're about to see who the real Katakuri player is. Shout out to God Usopp 93 for allowing us to showcase a best 2 out of 3 match on the channel, because this is really good content for you guys. Do we remove this? I mean, is he really attacking again though? I think here we can just let this go. I think he knows we have the Sanji. We revealed that to him, so we get rid of this one here. Maybe he taps out for a Katakuri, targets our own. If he gives it back to us, that's amazing. This is a game changer. So if we pass back to him, he'll have 2 characters. We'll be at 2. Whereas if we give him a life, do we really have enough to counter out of that though? I'm gonna give him a life. We'll play long game. I'd rather stay healthy. Just swing with everybody. Swing with everybody. Let 10 cost Big Mom do the talking. If he lets us do this damage, then we're going to 10 cost. I want to get rid of that second life. Sweet. Mama needs to eat. Let's go, baby. Get rid of that Charlotte Brulee. So glad we got rid of that. If he would have triggered that last, that would have been so irritating. And that was the only one we didn't know, I think. So we're at 3, he's at 1. I think we got this closed out. What can he even do here? He can play for board, and then he can play his own 10 cost. But at that point, we just gain back another one. He plays his 10 cost, he attacks for 5, we mitigate that. And then he trades away our Katakuri. Like, I'm cool with that all day. I think we just have game. It's definitely a tough situation, but I'm glad that I got to showcase you guys one of the few situations where you actually want to give your opponent a life. I think that was correct. Okay, so he actually got to use this card and gain rush. This card is actually somewhat viable. The fact he doesn't have 10 cost Big Mom is really bad for him. If he plays for board, we just automatically win because we just 10 drop. Swinging 7 at our life. I mean, we can't really block anything else. If we do that, then he trades board. I'd prefer him to do that, honestly. We have another 10 cost Big Mom, so we can aggressively counter here. If he dons up Charlotte Pudding, he's a Giga Chad. I don't know if he can afford to do so, though. We might, oh my gosh, he has another Charlotte Katakuri. That's a little crazy. But at least we know he doesn't have any Coco sovereignty. He may have a card in hand that we know, but it's kind of difficult to keep track with the way that things are displayed. We're going to let that go. Here, yeah, let's get a 2K. Big Mom needs 2Ks. Did you trade away a board? If he trades away a board, that's amazing for us. We just win. We just use our 2 big guys to trade away his big guys. Now he'll probably use his, oh wait, yeah, he doesn't have a 10 cost, so we can't even trade away this. That's amazing. Sure, it's gone. Okay. I'll take the 1k counter because we're gonna play 10 cost again. 10 cost is literally just so busted. Okay, bro. That's gonna be wraps. By doing that, he's pretty much out of the game. Let's go ahead and swing here. Maybe we should have 10 cost it first so that we could force this out. Okay. He lets it die. That's amazing for us. Let's go ahead and Big Mom one more time. Big Mom OP. Let's go. I love Big Mom. Swing face. You're forced to use your blocker. You have no counter in hand, bro. Use your blocker. I think that's going to be GG. 2 Big Mom is just too crazy. Our life total is so high, and he realizes that. That was a good series. I'm so glad I got to play that with him. I hope you really learned something from this today, because I know I learned a lot, and I am loving this deck so far. As always, thank you so much for watching. If it's not the goo, it's got to go. Peace.
Ooh, is that indigo?